220 Teachings of Śrī Siṃha. Teachings of Śrī Siṃha. 2. The practice of cultivating the path. On another occasion, when I encountered the king of Vidyadharas, Śrī Siṃha, I asked, "O teacher, please show me the path of the great perfection." He replied, "The great perfection is the great, universal basis of samsara and nirvana, the great absolute space in which samsara, nirvana, and the path are perfect and complete. Knowing its mode of being is the view. Gaining mastery over this great, original, primordial ground, you awaken and expand within yourself, which is meditation that is devoid of a referent. This is like a drop of water merging with the ocean, becoming the ocean without modifying it. It is like the space inside a vase merging with the space outside it, such that it expands infinitely into space without modifying it. Although there is no outer or inner with respect to the ground of being and the mind, self-grasping superimposes boundaries between outer and inner. Just as water in its naturally fluid state freezes solid due to currents of cold wind, likewise the naturally fluid ground of being is thoroughly established as samsara by cords of self-grasping. In the explanation of how to practice cultivating the path, there are, at the concise teachings of pith, instructions on the vital points of methods for placing the mind, b. the 4 methods of liberation of the radiance, and c. the specific teachings of the 4 kinds of open presence. A. The concise teachings of pith, instructions on the vital points of methods for placing the mind. Like oil saturating sesame seeds, the primordial ground Shugatagava abides as great spontaneous actualization, eternally pervading the mind streams of all sentient beings. However, with grasping at external objects serving as the cause, and grasping at the internal mind serving as the contributing condition, you have become deluded under the influence of ignorance. First you determine by way of the view how all phenomena included in samsara and nirvana are not inherently existent. Then you decisively ascertain your own awareness as being groundless, rootless, and of the great all-pervasive nature of samsara and nirvana, which consists of displays of pristine awareness, self-emergent primordial consciousness. Do not follow after past thoughts, do not anticipate future thoughts, and do not fall under the influence of present thoughts. Rather, rest in meditative equipoise in the naturally settled, great clear light. You must recognize that there is nothing else for you to meditate upon. Regarding the indubitability of this, even if Lord Buddha were to actually come to you, you must not be ambivalent or uncertain. If you do not realize this, even though you may give lip service to identitylessness, in reality you will be unable to endure misfortune and will have no inner fortitude, and this will be the reason why. Therefore, it is important to correctly know how to perform the outer purification and, specifically, how to purify the 8 collections of consciousness in forward and reverse order. If you do not know this, it is said that your meditation will not rise above an ethically neutral ground and will therefore not lead to the path. Due to not experiencing the nature of existence of the Shugatagava, you become deluded, but when you actualize the nature of all-pervasive great wisdom, you are liberated within yourself. For this, you must decisively ascertain that all of samsara and nirvana consists of nothing but your own appearances. In general, the minds of sentient beings are an expanse of emptiness and luminosity, in which all kinds of thoughts can arise. So as you let your mind illuminate them like a candle, the appearances of various thoughts emerge from the domain of afflictive mentation, like sparks emerging from fire. When waves emerge from water, even though the water and the waves appear to be separate, they are of one taste in the nature of water, without one being worse or better than the other. Likewise, from the very moment that thoughts arise, the ground of their arising is the absolute space of ultimate reality, and the thoughts and the one to whom they appear are not really different, but are rather of the same taste. You must know how this is so. On the other hand, if you foster thoughts and block them by applying antidotes and so on, like blocking the mouth of a great river, resulting in the land being destroyed by water, karmic energies will enter your life force channel and you will certainly go mad. with respect to viewing your own creative power as a problem and then blocking it and so forth. The unimpeded radiance of the Dharmakaya is the wisdom that perceives the full range of phenomena. So if you abandon this, you will certainly not become a Buddha by divorcing yourself from the primordial consciousness that knows reality as it is and perceives the full range of phenomena. In general, in one 24-hour period there are movements of 21 thoughts, so, no matter what, they fade away, whether or not they are inhibited or sustained. And the subsequent consciousness is none other than the primordial consciousness of the Dharmakaya. For this reason, gurus of the past have stated that however many thoughts proliferate, to the same extent the Dharmakaya proliferates, just as a mass of fire flares up in accordance with the amount of fuel. Just as kindling burns itself up, so do thoughts release themselves, resulting in their infinite dispersion exclusively into the primordial consciousness of the Dharmakaya. Therefore, it is said that as long as you meditate by blocking thoughts, enlightenment will not be achieved. So-called meditation is not searching for something. Without falling into an ethically neutral, non-meditative state, dwell in the great, natural settling in ultimate reality, as Akaya Kotali taught. Mental meditation is not meditation. Not meditating is also not meditation. Transcending meditation and the meditator. Having nothing in mind is Mahamudra. You might think there is no difference between this and an ordinary sentient being, but there is a difference. Sentient beings do not know the characteristic of the non-inherent nature of all appearances of phenomena, so they reify all appearances, and their minds descend, as it were, into darkness. Just as water, which is naturally liquid, solidifies when it freezes, you are deluded by being bound up with the cords of dualistic grasping, and your own nature is solidified. Yogin's realization of how all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana are not inherently existent is like the breaking of the dawn and the rising of the sun. Until this occurs, apart from applying yourself to actualizing the naturally settled clear light, there is nothing whatsoever to meditate upon. Just as there is nothing more to open once you have opened one eye and can see, apart from simply seeing space with your eyes, there is no other object of focus or act of focusing. You might think that there is no difference between this and ordinary sentient beings or even animals seeing space, but it is not so. Sentient beings do not know the nature of being of the ground, so they see nothing more than the immateriality of space. Therefore, this is like seeing a striped rope as a snake or mistaking a pile of stones for a man. In reality, there is a difference between being aware and not being aware and between knowing and not knowing, just as there is a difference between gold and stone. Some people claim that without knowing the nature of emptiness, simply by the power of enduring the hardships of ordinary life one must gain knowledge, and apart from this, there is no difference between seeing and not seeing the nature of emptiness. Well, if that were the case, then the teachings of the perfect Buddha, the Bhagavan, in the second turning of the wheel, which demonstrates the absence of intrinsic characteristics and the emptiness of all phenomena from visual form up to the omniscient mind, would be pointless. Even though you resolutely withstand hardships throughout lifetimes in beginningless samsara until now, while you may be lifted up, there will not be even the slightest bit of progress, so there will still be no occasion for realization. Realization occurs in reliance upon the teachings of the jinas, the transmission of the gurus, and the valid cognition of your own awareness. This is a crucial point. From the time that you identify non-conceptual space, the secret absolute space of the equality of the three kayas, and apply yourself to this experience, there is nothing else whatsoever to meditate upon. Akaya Bhagampa stated. Fathom this space. If it is realized as objectless, the great nail of non-meditation is struck. And the nature of the mind is the great sky of absolute space. As Saraha declared, everything without exception is of the nature of space. And never is there any wavering from it. Even though I exclaim, space, space. The essential nature of space is not established as anything. It is not existent or non-existent, nor is it a non-entity or a non-nonentity. 148. And it is beyond the scope of any other demonstrable object. Thus, the mind, space, and ultimate reality are not the slightest bit different. In reality, there is no object of meditation or agent who meditates, no object of application or agent who applies, no entity upon which you focus or agent of attention, and nothing to be unified or agent who unifies. So settle in the great place of rest, ultimate reality, which is inexpressible by speech or thought. B. The four methods of liberation of the radiance. These four are: 1. Perceiving the vital point of primordial immutability within the three times, which is like primordially liberated space. 2. The natural liberation of thoughts releasing themselves without reliance on other remedies, which is like the knots in a snake unraveling themselves. 3. The arising of the absolute space of ultimate reality and the originally pure perception of this arising as primordial consciousness, which is like the arising and release of waves. And 4. Appearances not being able to be grasped by the intellect from the moment they arise, and being liberated right where they are, without being bound by grasping. This naked, instantaneous liberation is like snow falling on heated rocks. The four methods of liberation of the radiance are implicitly perfected. C. The four kinds of open presence. 1. Regarding the view of open presence, the great uniform pervasiveness of the view transcends intellectual grasping at signs, does not succumb to bias or extremes, and realizes unconditioned reality, which is like space. 2. Regarding the meditation of open presence, just as the water of the great ocean is unfathomable, whatever arises is none other than the nature of ultimate reality. Just as water is permeated by lucid luminosity, in ultimate reality there is no samsara or nirvana, no joy or sorrow, and so forth, for you realize that everything dissolves into uniform pervasiveness as displays of clear light. 3. Regarding the pristine awareness of open presence, just as the supreme mountain in the center of this world system is unmovable, pristine awareness transcends time, without wavering even for an instant from the nature of its own great luminosity. 4. Regarding the appearances and mindsets of open presence, all appearing phenomena are naturally empty and self-illuminating. They are not apprehended by the intellect, not grasped by the mind, and not modified by awareness. Rather, they dissolve into great uniform pervasiveness, so they are liberated with no basis for acceptance or rejection, no distinction between luminosity and emptiness, and no ambivalence. To summarize all these points, the great perfection of ultimate reality is the great universal basis of samsara, nirvana, and the path, as well as the great absolute space that encompasses samsara, nirvana, and the path. Truly perceiving its character and nature of being is the view, and when you see your own nature, you gain mastery over the great, original, primordial ground of being. By holding your own ground within yourself, pristine awareness awakens to its own nature, and meditation, without wavering from great uniform pervasiveness, free of conceptual elaboration, is devoid of any objective referent. When a water drop merges with the ocean, it is indivisible from the ocean, and the one space on the outside and inside of a broken vase cannot be differentiated, but extends into a single, all-pervasive space. Likewise, in the identification within yourself of the Dharmakaya, pristine awareness that is present in the ground, there is nothing to be altered and nothing else with which to engage. Without knowing this, under the influence of self-grasping, despite the fact that there is no distinction of outer and inner regarding the ground of being and the mind, the self is demarcated as being over here, and the ground of being is demarcated as being over there, thus bifurcating inner and outer. Just as water in its naturally liquid state freezes solid due to currents of cold wind, the ground of being of the naturally liberated state is bound up by cords of self-grasping, and the whole of samsara appears and is established as real. Recognizing how that is so, relinquish good, bad, and neutral bodily activities, and remain like a corpse in a charnel ground, doing nothing. Likewise, relinquish the 3 kinds of verbal activity and remain like a mute, and also relinquish the 3 kinds of mental activity and rest without modification, like the autumn sky, free of the 3 contaminating conditions. This is called meditative equipoise. It is also called transcendence of the intellect, for by relinquishing the 9 kinds of activity, activities are released without doing anything, and nothing is modified by the intellect. In the context of this vital point, you will acquire great confidence within yourself. Moreover, at all times while moving about, sitting, shifting positions, and engaging in oral recitations and mental activities, without losing the perspective of the view, regard appearing phenomena as being like illusions. Without losing the confidence of meditation, be consciously aware of the nature of phenomena. Without allowing your conduct to become careless, properly devote yourself to the 4 kinds of activity. This is the natural liberation of meditation that transcends the intellect. Once you truly know and realize that, relinquish outer activities of the body, such as walking, sitting, and moving about, inner activities of prostrations and circumambulations, and secret activities of ritual dancing, performing mudras, and so on. Resting in inactivity, with a great sense of release, remain like a corpse in a charnel ground. Relinquish outer activities of speech, such as all kinds of delusional chatter, inner activities such as reciting liturgies, and secret activities such as counting propitiatory mantras of your personal deity. Remain in silence, as if you were mute. Relinquish outer activities of the mind, such as thoughts aroused by the 5 poisons and the 3 poisons, inner activities of mind training and cultivating positive thoughts, and the secret activity of dwelling in mundane states of dhyana. Not wavering from uncontrived, naturally settled clear light, like the early morning sky in autumn, uncontaminated by dust, mist, or darkness. 149 is called meditative equipoise. By utterly relinquishing all activities in this way, you achieve the state of great inactivity, and by not modifying this with the intellect, it is said that the intellect is transcended. You will then acquire confidence within yourself in these vital points, and when you experience your own ground as Samantabhadra, you will see that there is no Buddha apart from your own awareness. Consequently, you will acquire confidence such that even if you saw the whole sky filled with Buddhas, this would not arouse even the slightest bit of faith. By decisively understanding samsara and nirvana as your own appearances, you will acquire the confidence of achieving enlightenment within yourself, without looking to any other causes or effects. By coming to rest in your own ground as Samantabhadra within yourself, even if you were surrounded by 100 assassins, you would have confidence free of even the slightest fear. By realizing samsara as nameless, you acquire the confidence of fearlessness regarding samsara and the miserable states of existence. This is the vital point of meditative equipoise, and until you achieve it, it is crucial that you know how misery arises from non-virtue and how happiness arises from virtue. Therefore, even during post-meditative periods, do not lose this way of viewing reality, but sustain the subsequent flow of awareness of decisively knowing the non-dual displays of samsara and nirvana. Do not lose the confidence of meditation, which means that by remaining in the presence of the lucidity and luminosity of space, you do not depart from the great glow of the actualization of the radiance of awareness free of activity. Do not stray into careless behavior, but avoid negative, non-virtuous actions as if they were poison. When you are eating, resting, walking, and sitting, engage in these activities in a gentle and relaxed way, without ever becoming careless, even for an instant. Wherever you are, let your perception be vast and spacious. Whomever you accompany, be of good cheer. These 2 points are to be cultivated until the end of your life. If they are not cultivated, it is not enough merely to identify pristine awareness, which would be like having food but not eating it, or having clothing but not wearing it. Even if you have an ocean of learning, if you do not meditate, you will fall into delusion, and when you face death you will certainly do so as an ordinary being. Düdjom Lingpa stated. Even if you identify your own nature, if you do not familiarize yourself with it, you will be carried away by malevolent thoughts, like a child in battle. If you meditate with a sense of fortitude, you will disappear as a rainbow body, like the 80 realized adepts of Yerpa and so forth. Nowadays, some people speak in exalted ways and put on a good show. But when they face death, there's no difference between them and ordinary people, and this is because they can't meditate due to their weak fortitude. Therefore, now, while you are young, you should know how to practice Dharma and apply yourself while you can. Otherwise, when you are struck down by a terminal disease for which neither medical treatment nor religious services are of any help, and your respiration grows fainter, you will remember all the non-virtuous deeds you have done in the past and will be terrified of the results. Overcome by remorse at not having applied yourself to the sublime Dharma, your heart will burst, but it will be too late. The great Orgain declared. Even if an old sinner feels remorse when facing death, it is too late. So now you must swiftly enter the path of Dharma and abandon the sense that you are going to be here for long. As Padampa Sangye commented, when you are mindful, your progress is swift, people of Dingri. Do not turn your mind to your father for advice, do not seek counsel from your mother, and do not try to decide for yourself, but entrust your mind to your guru and to the three jewels. You should diligently apply yourself to the Dharma, as Düdjom Lingpa said. As for your training, at the outset trust no one but a qualified guru as your teacher, and do not listen to just anyone. Do not procrastinate when it comes to the Dharma, but swiftly strive diligently. This is the natural liberation of meditation that transcends the intellect. 3. The accompanying conduct for those two, view and meditation. As for the vital point of conduct, do not go astray in your conduct due to your view, thinking that everything is emptiness, so however I behave, I will not be contaminated by faults. Avoid non-virtues of the body, speech, and mind as if they were poison. Serene, subdued, and conscientious, behave as if you were entering the presence of a supreme judge. On the other hand, if you fixate on other virtues of the body, speech, and mind as if they were of the utmost importance, this will overwhelm the authentic view and meditation. If you spend your whole life merely accumulating merit within samsara, it will be as if you were bound with chains of gold. Without overemphasizing proper conduct at the expense of the view, be like an unconquerable snow lion standing proudly in the snow. Furthermore, if you follow after those who say that you must cultivate compassion in some other way, even though you have realized the view of emptiness, this will be like someone who has water but seeks moisture elsewhere, like someone who has fire but seeks warmth elsewhere, or like someone who has wind but says coolness must come from somewhere else. The decisive ascertainment of samsara and nirvana as great emptiness is the unsurpassed bodhisattva, the compassion of viewing samsara and nirvana as displays of purity and equality. Do not let the view lead you into improper behavior, but rather avoid the 10 non-virtues like poison and conduct yourself in a serene, subdued, conscientious fashion, as if you were entering the presence of a supreme judge. If you let the view lead you into improper behavior, this will result in careless behavior, and by becoming addicted to mundane affairs, you will become caught up in an ongoing flow of negative actions. Developing false views regarding the three jewels, you may dismiss the laws of karma. As a result of laughing and frolicking and not practicing the ultimate view and meditation, you will not even begin to accumulate the merit for taking rebirth as a god or a human. So if you spend your time in negative, idle chatter, this acts as a cause for such rebirths as Amara or Rudra. This would be like seeking a healing medicine but instead encountering a plant that is poisonous to the touch. In general, the antidote for unawareness, ignorance, is awareness, and the antidote for samsara is emptiness, but if this is misunderstood, your mind stream will be filled with false views and you will behave in various ways that are incompatible with the Dharma. There are a number of instances in which this has evidently occurred, and it is due to misunderstanding emptiness. To return to the analogy of entering the presence of a supreme judge when coming into the presence of a very strict judge, if you do not bow, behave courteously, walk and conduct yourself slowly, speak with dignity, mentally examine things with care, and so forth, your life may be endangered. Likewise, without letting the view lead you into improper behavior, you should investigate carefully and behave with restraint, physically and verbally. The Lord of Death is even more strict, and if you cut the life force channel of liberation, it is crucial that you mend your midstream. Until you reach the intellect transcending extinction into ultimate reality, you must behave appropriately concerning even the subtlest causes and effects. As the great Orgain declared, although my view is higher than the sky, my conduct regarding cause and effect is finer than barley flour. Do not let behavior lead you into false views. You should be like an unconquerable snow lion with a rich mane, the king of beasts, standing proudly in the snow. If you become overly preoccupied with other virtues of the body, speech, and mind, this will overwhelm the view and meditation. If you spend your life merely accumulating merit within samsara, it is like being bound with chains of gold. If your efforts in Dharma practice are like plucking flowers in the summertime, each one prettier than the last, you will dispense with the practice of the profound view and meditation, and you will inevitably face death as an ordinary person and thereby perpetuate samsara. Apart from aspiring for the merely temporary joys of gods and humans, you will not achieve the fruition of liberation, and this is what binds you. You must achieve firm conviction in the qualities of the profound view and meditation, such that even if you see or hear of the qualities of other dharmas, this will not overwhelm your view and meditation. In particular, there are people who say that even if you have realized the view of emptiness, you must strive to cultivate compassion by some other means. However, such compassion that distinguishes between self and others is not free of the mentality of attachment and aversion, so such generation of bodhisattva is merely an aspiration but is not engaged. If you adhere to this notion, you will definitely be like a person who has water but says that moisture must come from elsewhere, like someone who has fire but seeks warmth elsewhere, or like one who has wind but hopes to find coolness elsewhere. Once you have recognized and realized the nature of the one great emptiness of samsara and nirvana, the decisive understanding resulting from this is the compassion of viewing samsara and nirvana as displays of purity and equality. There is nothing called compassion or bodhisattva apart from this. Even though you have correctly identified and recognized the vital points and nature of the view and meditation, if you decide that this alone is sufficient and then fixate on mundane activities, it will result in wasting your life in various activities of attachment and aversion. By so doing, all your view and meditation will be overwhelmed by delusive activities of samsara. By relying upon the pith instructions of the Guru in that way, even though you correctly identify the nature of the view of the ground of being, without familiarizing yourself with it, but rather having confidence in mere intellectual understanding, thinking that this is enough, and deciding on just this, you will become fixated on mundane activities like before. You will segregate some people as your enemies and feel aversion toward them, while partitioning off those you regard as your friends and feeling attachment toward them. By coming under the domination of such delusive mental afflictions, you will set in motion all manner of negative, non-virtuous actions. By failing to acquire confidence and stability in a lifelong practice that is a useless waste, all views and meditations will be overwhelmed by delusion and the affairs of samsara. This is due to failing to familiarize yourself with the view, even though you have identified it. On the other hand, if you ascertain samsara and nirvana as displays of equality without losing the perspective of the profound view, you will not lose the confidence of meditation. Just as the ocean is imbued with lucidity and clarity, so will you gently dwell in the actualization of the radiance of pristine awareness. Until phenomena dissolve into ultimate reality, do not let your behavior degenerate due to your view, but rather regulate your expressions of body, speech, and mind, while rejecting non-virtue as if it were poison. Not letting your view be led astray by behavior is like a snow lion with a turquoise mane, unconquerable by other creatures, overpowering all other beasts simply by standing proudly in the snow, with no creature daring to approach it. Likewise, a yogin who has perfected in his body the three creative expressions of the profound view and meditation masters and overpowers all outer appearances. So you must not be misled by effortful paths. An explanation of three pitfalls of meditative experiences. Appearances of meditative experiences occur when your mind and consciousness shift in unprecedented ways. Pleasurable, soothing experiences of bliss propel you to rebirth as a god of the desire realm. Vivid experiences of luminosity propel you to rebirth as a god of the form realm. A non-conceptual sense of vacuity, in which awareness is withdrawn in an unconscious, blank, unmindful state like deep sleep, propels you to rebirth in the four dimensions of the formless realm. Lacking any knowledge of the view of emptiness, you may determine that the mind is empty merely in the sense that it is not established as something substantial. Resting the mind single-pointedly in this state of vacuity is a view that propels you to the peak of mundane existence and to rebirth as a god who lacks discernment. As for appearances of meditative experiences, an unprecedented, soothing sense of bliss may arise from which you never want to be separated, and if you cling to this and achieve stability in it, this will propel you to rebirth as a god of the desire realm. An unprecedented sense of vivid luminosity may arise that will propel you to the form realm, and you may also experience subtle kinds of extrasensory perception. If you cling to this, it will propel you to the form realm. You may experience a non-conceptual sense of vacuity that propels you to the four dimensions of the formless realm. This is a mindless, unconscious experience of inner vacuity in which grasping becomes subtle and dormant, as if you were deep asleep. With no knowledge of the view of emptiness, the mind decisively settles on the nature of emptiness as the mere absence of substantiality. If you single-pointedly focus on such vacuity, this will propel you to the peak of mundane existence and to rebirth as a god who lacks discernment. By recognizing this view, you must not fall under such influences. Rather, whichever of these occur, know them to be patterns of meditative experiences that are devoid of true existence, while securing the stronghold of pristine awareness. Moreover, outer upheavals include various apparitions appearing to your senses, such as visions of gods and demons arising as bad omens. Inner upheavals include the occurrence of various illnesses and pains in the body. Secret upheavals include random mood swings. If you are aware of the deceptive flaws of all of these and come to a decisive understanding of them, they will vanish of their own accord. If you cling to the true existence and obsessively fixate on hopes and fears, they can become life-threatening, resulting in psychotic episodes, fits, seizures, and so on. Succumbing to fixating on them as divine and demonic appearances causes meditative adepts to degenerate into being merely ordinary. With these words, he disappeared. Furthermore, as for outer upheavals, these are various, they're apparitions of gods and demons arising to your senses as bad omens and so on, appearances of various inauspicious forms of gods and demons, various disagreeable mental experiences arising due to waking up in a panic from seeing unpleasant forms in your dreams, illnesses arising due to food, lodging, and trauma, illnesses difficult to heal arising merely from coming in contact with earth, stone, wood, and weapons, and the mysterious occurrences of wounds, leprosy, ulcers, and so on. As for inner upheavals, any of the 404 types of imbalances of wind, bile, phlegm, and combinations of them may arise in the body, and, as if the entire might and strength of your mind had seeped away into them, inexpressible suffering and various pains may occur. Secret upheavals include experiences of joys and sorrows, unpleasant attachment, hatred, craving, unbearable suffering, delight, depression, and clinging to experiences of emptiness and luminosity, a sense of sheer vacuity, in which appearances and mindsets are impeded, paranoia, in which everything you see or feel is out to harm you, disturbing the minds of others due to your own anger and malice, and afterward feeling remorse, having the pride of thinking that there is no yogin on earth who has a view and meditation like mine, and feeling that everything you have done is wonderful, and consequently feeling free to do whatever you like. Such unpredictable joys and sorrows will certainly arise. If you reify and fixate on such experiences and fortify them with hopes and fears, these meditative experiences will turn into illnesses. You may then reinforce them by apprehending them as demonic influences. Even though you apply yourself to medical treatments and magic rituals to dispel obstacles, you will not receive even the slightest benefit. If the sentry that identifies meditative experiences is lost, this might cause you to go insane, pass out, faint, and so on, leading to your own death, or you might become as stupid as an animal, and so forth. Fixating on mere meditative experiences of clear visions due to samatha as apparitions of gods or demons, clairvoyant knowledge of others' minds, and so on leads contemplatives to fall to ordinary states. You must practice so that you know and decisively recognize that all such sensations are deceptive experiences of your own flaws, and they will naturally disappear. Whenever any patterns of joyful and miserable experiences arise, recognize them as being not truly existent, and neither block nor affirm discursive thoughts. Rather, by recognizing their nature as deceptive meditative experiences, the appearances of these experiences will vanish by themselves, like mist fading into the sky. As the Great Perfection states, meditative experiences are like mist that fades away. If you block these discursive thoughts, it will be like blocking the mouth of a great river, as Padampa Sangye said. Avoid blocking thoughts, for they are like bubbles that burst of their own accord. They will not be stopped by blocking them, people of Dingri. The great Orgain said, "There are many who know how to build up meditation. But only I know how to break it down." Casting aside all conceptual elaboration of mental activity and resting without a mental object and without grasping is a sublime, crucial point. With these words, he disappeared from sight.